All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Today, I'm honored to welcome Dean Wegner to the show. Dean is the founder and CEO of Authentically American, a premium apparel brand that is 100% American-made, veteran-owned, and driven by purpose. From West Point to the boardroom, Dean's story is one of service, strategy, and unwavering commitment to the American worker. So, Dean, welcome to the show.
Lisa, I'm so glad we were introduced, and I'm honored to be your guest. Looking forward to a great discussion.
Great. Share with us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing what you do.
Yeah. Let me start personally, Lisa, so everyone tuning in can know a little bit about me personally. So God, family, country is how the priorities line up. And last year, my wife Kelly and I celebrated anniversary number 30. And you don't know me that well yet, Lisa, but I'm a lot to put up with. So thankful for her love and partnership for 30 years. And we have 4 amazing kids. So we have 2 daughters, 26 and 23. We have a 20-year-old son. He's a freshman at West Point, so an Army hockey player like his dad, just fortunately much better than his dad. And then we have a 15-year-old son we adopted from Ethiopia. Family is very important to me, and from a country and service. So I am a West Point graduate. So I graduated in 1993, chose aviation as my branch, and went to flight school, learned how to fly helicopters. Then did have a unique opportunity after flight school, went to the Army Special Forces Ranger School, and served 7 years active duty, so 93 to 2000.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, I appreciate that, Lisa, because I love this great nation of ours, and it truly was an honor to serve.
Good. So what inspired you then to start Authentically American, and why is being 100% American made so important to your vision?
Lisa, I'm laughing because I tell everybody now I'm a veteran and an entrepreneur, but when I left the Army in 2000, I couldn't even spell entrepreneur. I had no idea this world existed. And reason being, I had an amazing dad growing up, and for 30 years, he worked for a Fortune 500 company. And that's what most of his friends, that's what most of our neighbors did. So that's the only world I knew. And I followed his path and worked at Procter & Gamble and Mars, which if you're not familiar with them, I'm sure you've heard of brands like Crest and Tide and M&M's. Mm-hmm. And incredibly thankful for that experience, Lisa, because they're both just world-class marketing and branding companies, and learned some incredible insights into building a brand. But what also drives me is wanting to know I make a difference. And P&G, for perspective, is an $80 billion company. And in such a big company, really felt like a cog in the wheel and wrestled with if I'm truly making a difference. And that was the initial catalyst to become an entrepreneur. But when you can't spell entrepreneur, I didn't think I had it in me to start a business from scratch. So I entered the entrepreneurial ranks through acquisition and bought my first business in 2012. And Lisa, I'll guarantee it's one you've never heard of, but have you been to a professional sports game before, an event?
Oh,
For
yeah.
example, I'm in Nashville, like a Predators game or a Titans game.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you've been to a professional sports game, you've seen the national anthem and the fancy dress military uniforms.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the business I bought. So I bought a government contractor that produced dress uniforms for the military. So thousands of uniforms every week for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And that's what brought me into the apparel industry. And one of the things I learned was the shocking history, which, to give you an idea how rare American made is, when I graduated from West Point in 1993, over 50% of the apparel was made in the US. Today it's 3%.
Wow.
So shockingly low. And I am also passionate about creating American jobs. And the initial thought was, I want to win more contracts. Then I thought we'll create more jobs. But Lisa, I didn't really understand government contracting. And when I better understood it, I realized that with government contracting, it's really a bidding process. So if you and I are bidding on a contract and you had it before and I won, in essence, your job's transferred to me and there's no real job creation. That was that light bulb moment for me that said, what if instead of being a government contractor, what if we built a brand? And I thought back to the days of Crest and Tide and M&Ms. And I also thought, what if instead of what 97% of brands do and chase cheap labor overseas, what if we made it all right here in the US? And that's where it started in 2017 from a blank sheet of paper with a vision to build this iconic American brand that's truly American made. And I'm exhausted. It's been the hardest, most challenging thing I've ever done. But you mentioned a mission, purpose-driven company. If you go to our website, authenticallyamerican.us, you will see the heart of our mission is our passion for creating American jobs. We just happen to be in the apparel business.
Okay. And you mentioned it a little bit about feeling like a cog in the wheel, but working for giant companies like Mars and P&G, how did that corporate experience shape the way you lead your company today?
So I'd say as a broad summary, Lisa, so West Point, Army, service to country, I really embrace that servant leadership mindset. And that is my goal, is service to our team, service to our customers, and that whole customer experience is really part of our culture and who we are. So that would be one era. Then you look at the Procter & Gamble and Mars phase, working on brands like Crest and Tide and M's in sales and marketing. That's really where it gains some tremendous insights into building a brand. So I really appreciate both of those experiences to help enable me to do what I do right now.
Okay. Now, with manufacturing apparel in the United States, obviously there's significant challenges to that, especially now with shockingly that 3% of apparel being made. So how have you overcome some of these obstacles as far as sourcing or labor or just the cost while remaining true to your mission?
You got it. Let me first of all give everyone some context and perspective on the apparel industry and the manufacturing model. So the most predominant manufacturing model in apparel is contracted. So Nike, for example, produces in China, Bangladesh, Vietnam, all around the world, but they don't own those facilities. It's contracted. It's the same model for us, Lisa, but instead of overseas, it's all here in the US in 11 states. So t-shirts, for example, we make in Texas. We make some incredibly soft and comfortable socks in North Carolina. We've got a fun, amazing Hawaiian we make in Georgia. So instead of overseas, all right here in the US in 11 states. And you had asked, how do you make it work? Because people will grab one of our t-shirts and be like, Dean, that is the softest t-shirt I've ever felt. And that's by design, because who doesn't love a nice soft t-shirt? We've been on national TV before, and one of the hosts on Fox and Friends will say, Dean, these are my favorite pair of socks. So we've got amazing product. It's American made, but Lisa, we also have to be competitively priced. And people will ask, how can you do that? Because 90% of our revenue is custom. So we work with thousands of businesses. Many of them are veteran owned. They're all patriotic, and they don't want their employees wearing a t-shirt made in China. They don't want them wearing a polo by Nike. They want a brand like ours. They just don't know we exist. So the way we can be competitive is a business model choice. So think back to Dell, and when they pioneered that model of go direct and cut out the middleman, that's the playbook we're following, because instead of selling our brand to a distributor and then in turn selling it to our end client, we only work direct. So whether you're Pepsi or J&J, a big Fortune 500 client of ours, or you are Wounded Warrior or Tunnel to Towers, clients that order thousands, or a small business or small charity, since we keep our minimums low, everyone works directly with our team. And that way, Lisa, we avoid that markup and we stay competitive.
Okay. Yeah, I was feeling like I was going to have to go all Shark Tank on you and say those same things.
So,
You pretty
Lisa,
much answered that question, because if I'm buying a pair of socks and one of them is $2 a pair and the other one is $15 a pair, I might not care where it's made.
And that is a very valid point, and why we put this model in place, because most people I've found will say, you know what, of course I prefer American made, But they will also sometimes say, I'll prefer it as long as I don't pay a penny more. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, there are some people I've met and know, and they say, you know what? I don't care what it costs. I will buy American made everything. And that is more of a rare group. And it's rare really on both ends of the spectrum.
Mm.
But this is not an apparel specific number. This goes across many industries. But I've read studies that say on average, the American consumer is willing to pay a 12% premium.
Okay.
And based on our business model, if you're buying a known national brand like Nike or Lands' End, we're going to be parity priced. And we don't want to be that $2 pair of socks because we want to be known for high quality. We've got an amazing brand and we're not overpriced. We're competitively priced, but we don't want to play in that lower tier.
So if you're dealing with a big company like PepsiCo, for example, and they're used to going through certain distributors, they're used to dealing with these massive distributors, how do you, and not that you're a solopreneur, selling direct, how do you sell direct to companies who aren't used to buying direct, I guess is the question.
It's a great question, Lisa. In essence, they have a promotional products distributor. For example, Pepsi. All big companies have a promotional products distributor. And I'd mentioned why that model doesn't work, but what the companies that we work with, whether it's Pepsi, J&J, Raytheon, Bridgestone, across the board, we don't replace that existing company. We get added as an additional supplier.
Okay.
So an example on how we really have been able to penetrate into larger Fortune 500 companies, they have what they refer to as employee resource groups, ERGs,
Okay.
BRGs. So Pepsi, for example, has Valor. J&J has VLC. Raytheon has RTX Vets. So veterans more than most don't want to wear a t-shirt made in China. So we get added as an additional supplier that anyone can use. Our initial use case, our initial client within those big companies is oftentimes those veteran groups. But we've also, Lisa, found, for example, now that we're in with Pepsi, we've got other manufacturing and bottling facilities starting to order from us because, you know what, they employ American workers who also, like us, believe in producing here in the U.S. So I think the key for us with these big companies is to find an entry point, find that starting point.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's a really good, again, going around the traditional to find your way in and be able to do business.
And Lisa, you mentioned going Shark Tank on me. I mean, they
Yeah.
probably would.
My favorite show.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal show, and they probably would question, like, why wouldn't you want to have a lower, cheaper price? And that gets back to mission and values and sense of purpose on what we believe. And I wish it wasn't just me. I wish my entire team was here because you would hear them echo the same sentiments, the same passion, the same belief in the American worker. And we do have less points of distribution, not using a third-party distributor. But I do believe this is long-term best for our brand. And a more recent example, if you've ever flown Southwest, you can't book on Travelocity or Expedia. You can only book online. So they've been at it for a long time and it's been a slower build, but they've built a loyal following and they're now one of the most successful airlines in the industry. And they don't have the equivalent of a distributor model. It's only direct through Southwest. So that's the other example I'll often cite on the model we're pursuing.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting with Southwest now that they're changing what made them Southwest by charging for bags. You take something that's been working for a long time and then make your base angry because of a change. So I'm a big fan of Southwest because I've always, that they're not who I have my status with, but I pay attention to marketing and marketing trends. The funny thing too, as far as going Shark Tank on you, they've had a lot of veterans and it's like, they don't just look for the cheapest deal. I think the fact that you are showing how you are getting rid of the middleman to keep your prices in parity would play well in that field versus adding all of those extra costs. So good job on that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Lisa. And I think when you're looking for the cheapest, that's a race to the bottom. You know, how cheap can
Exactly.
you get it?
Right. And you also, I know you donate 10% of your profits to veterans and first responder charities. So, again, you're very purpose driven. How does that affect your employee engagement and as well as your customer loyalty?
So our clients, Lisa, that have the greatest success with us not only make the intentional choice from wherever they were purchasing before to us and wanting American made product, but what they do is they share the why behind it. And they
Mm.
will share that here's the values of our company. We employ American workers, so we wanted everything to include the shirts we're providing our team to be American made. And probably the best compliment we get is when a client will call me up and say, Dean, I love it when we work with you. We had an event, so we made everyone wear their shirt on Friday, but they want to wear it on Saturday. It's their new favorite. It's incredibly soft and comfortable. We told them your story about veteran owned. It's American made. So that is just great grassroots marketing because when they're out for lunch, they're out golfing, they're out exercising, whatever it is they're doing, and they're wearing their company shirt that's from Authentically American, that's American made. That leads to higher levels of engagement. That leads ultimately to lower turnover, which really means a more successful business.
Well, and you look at, especially with the younger generations coming in with millennials and Gen Z, for example, who want to make sure that they are a part of with a company that's making a difference. They want to feel a part of something that's bigger than they are. It sounds like that would go really nicely from that employee engagement, especially when you're looking for ways to attract more people into your industry that maybe you haven't had any luck at getting before.
No doubt about it. And I think I joke because we've been at it since 2017 from a blank sheet of paper, and it has been a long, exhausting, tiring journey, Lisa. And there's been quite a few flashbacks to the Army Special Forces Ranger School with no sleep and incredible stress. But we're on the verge of being that overnight success story, 7 years in the making.
Yep. At least it's not 20.
That's right.
You sped up the process.
You got it.
So you have had some major media national exposure. So what impact have you seen has that had on your brand, and how do you continue to stay authentic when you're in the spotlight?
It has been an incredible blessing every time we're on national TV, Lisa, whether it's Fox and Friends or MSNBC. We've also been in Forbes magazine, a long list of networks. And Shopify is the platform we use for our website. So you can track traffic to your website, and it's like an earthquake hit. So if you're tracking over time and all of a sudden we go live on national TV, for example, on Fox and Friends, and there's 2 million people, it is like an earthquake hits the spike in traffic and it starts to fall off. And we're thankful anytime we're invited, but I can also see why. When I used to work on big brands like Crest and Tide and M's, why we would spend millions on marketing every month because you just need that sustained message. So that's what we're trying to work through right now with a small marketing budget, who occasionally will get a big national media hit. How do we keep that momentum building?
Well, and how do you deal with the spikes from an inventory standpoint when all of a sudden the earthquake hits? Are you going on back orders and all of that, or how do you make sure that doesn't happen?
So let me step back. I mentioned the 2 sides of our business. So there's an individual consumer side. So at least you can go to our website, authenticallyamerican.us, and buy your new favorite polo or t-shirts as an individual. But 90% of our revenue is custom, the thousands of business that we work with that want an American made solution. On the B2B custom side, there is no inventory issue there because that's just building awareness, and they will go to our website and book a scheduled time with my team to go ahead and talk about how their business or charity can start working with us. It is a challenge on the consumer side. Our focus is really on the custom B2B. That's where we feel we can have a clear point of differentiation. We do sell tens of thousands of dollars when we're on air, and sometimes if there's not enough lead time, we just don't have enough inventory. And we run out, but that's actually not a bad thing when they're like, man, shoot, I should have got on quicker because everything's sold out.
So what are some of the other things, because we've been talking about a lot about apparel, and so much of what you do is relative to really any manufacturer or any other type of business when it comes to workplace culture. What are some of the other ways that you have really gotten your employees to engage, to connect, and to feel appreciated and a part of what you do over there?
So, Lori and Lisa, in essence, your podcast, it's all about telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And we are a brand that is wrapped up in the American made story. And as we are really starting to grow now, we've talked as a leadership team, how do we make sure that the culture and what we believe in and the ethos of our brand stay alive? So it starts with day one, week one, month one, the education and the training and overview. And we're also starting to look at what type of programs that we can put in, whether it's a monthly lunch and learn or quarterly learning, just continuing to reinforce the education and training and the storytelling that reinforces who we are as a brand and what our culture is all about.
So when you're doing lunch and learns or you're doing quarterly trainings, what are some of the topics? Are you staying strictly to business topics, or are you going off to personal development and more holistic types of topics as well?
Lisa, you may have to invite me back in 6 months because we've been so busy. That is just what we're envisioning in the future.
Okay.
So we just say as we're growing, we need to make sure, and those are some ideas that we talked about. So I couldn't say, okay, last week we did this, the month before we did this, but that's what we envision because just in a small startup team, we've talked about the importance of storytelling and the same thing with our clients.
Yeah, and really investing in your employees and investing in their development and looking for ways to do that consistently, because that's another way to really make sure that the people that you have stay with you.
Yeah. And I'll turn it on the flip side, Lisa, which actually ties into your world because you're a professional full-time keynote speaker, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So we're taking a page out of the Lisa Ryan playbook because I think this really plays well, not just for our brand, but anyone from a manufacturing standpoint that's looking to share the American made story. Because when you are actually producing a tangible good, like the only downside of our discussion, I'm holding up a pair of our socks and you can't feel them and touch them and understand how incredibly soft and comfortable they are. We have a t-shirt, which again is incredibly soft and comfortable, Lisa, but it has a special innovation. Our sweat activated print innovations. So we have collegiate licenses, Army, Navy, Air Force, for example. Are you familiar with the Army Navy game and that rivalry?
Yes.
Yeah. So here's what makes this one so special. Printed, it says Go Army, but when you sweat, Beat Navy appears.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And when I'm invited to be a keynote speaker, and this is happening more frequently with all the national media attention, I will bring some of our product. And the story is around Sing Second, which is a tradition from the Army-Navy rivalry on whoever wins. Doesn't sing their alma mater first, they sing it second. And that's a sign of victory and respect. And then we talk about embracing a sing second mindset and winning and competing and having a tireless work ethic, but putting the interest of others first and really treating others with dignity and respect. But then when I can tell these stories and have product there for people to see and feel and touch, that's when the real engagement happens. So whether you're in apparel manufacturing or whatever area of manufacturing you're in, I've just found the keynote speaking and in-person events and we're exhibiting is a powerful platform and marketing vehicle for our brand.
Well, I know I speak at a lot of association conferences, and that's what I love about doing that, is because you're in a room with a bunch of people who are passionate about things that nobody else on the planet thinks about. We look around the room and every single thing that we see in our room was manufactured by somebody. But unless you're hanging out with those people, we take so much for granted and don't even really think about all the things that go on behind the scenes to make our lives as good and as rich as they are.
And remember that 3% number, Lisa, that I shared of all that's made here?
Yep.
That gave birth to our tagline, Where's Yours Made? And I like to ask people like, hey, great looking shirt, where's yours made? And it's designed to be provocative. We want you, next time you're putting on a shirt, to take a look at the tag. Next time you're shopping, to look at the tag, because we want you to be shocked and disappointed when you see it made in China, when you see anything other than made in USA, and then make a different choice in the future.
Yeah. And when it must be really hard to find. So unless you are specifically going to an authentically American brand, if you're just, and I don't want to, you mentioned like Walmart or some big box store, that I would imagine it would be really hard to find anything in apparel made in America.
Back to that 3%, we're very
Yeah.
unique and differentiated. And there are some high-end, more prestige, luxury type brands that will be American made. But if you're a business or charity and you want an American made solution, there's very little available.
So looking ahead, what's your vision for the future of the company, and how do you see your company influencing the broader manufacturing conversation here in the United States?
Lisa, we want to continue to grow, and that is important because our vision is to build this iconic American brand, and we're a long way from that. So we want to go ahead and continue to grow, because when we grow and our revenue increases, that ultimately means there's more American workers who are producing our product, which ultimately ties to our mission around American job creation. So that is a big overarching push, and our big initiative this year, with 90% of our revenue being custom and B2B, that we realized that we needed a sales team. So we just hired our first sales representative 2 weeks ago. And now when we have this great brand halo from the national media, he can be out there, or she can be out there, building relationships, meeting with our clients, fostering that and telling the story.
Oh, that's awesome. So as we're starting to get to the end of our time together, is there something that I should have asked you and didn't? It seemed like we covered a lot, but I know that there's so many facets to what you do. I just want to make sure that you're sharing what you need to share that would be of interest to other manufacturers.
Lisa, it's easy to see why you've been doing this for 4 years and you have nearly 200 episodes, because you're very good at what you do. And I think you've asked some great questions. I would just encourage the question back, everyone tuning in, where is yours made? And if your values and who you are align with our brand, and you want to buy a new t-shirt for yourself, or a pair of socks for your husband or wife, or a hoodie or polo, anything like that, go to our website, authenticallyamerican.us. Or if you have your own business, you lead a charity, you're a decision maker in a small, middle market, large business, doesn't matter what size, because we have clients that order tens of thousands of items, down to small businesses, since we keep our minimums low. Same best place as our website, authenticallyamerican.us.
All right, awesome. So if somebody did want to continue the conversation with you, is that the best way, or how do they get in touch with you directly?
Our website is a great spot. You'll be able to contact me that way, but LinkedIn, from a business standpoint, you go search Dean Wegner, Wegner, so Wegner with an E. Authentically American, you are going to find me very quickly and easily, and we'll love to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. All
right, Dean, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Lisa, thank you for all you're doing to highlight U.S. manufacturing, because that's obviously something we believe in, and I appreciate you sharing many great stories.
You're very welcome. I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network Podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network Podcast. Do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow this network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either send your buddies to the website at manufacturers-network.com, or share the Manufacturers Network podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow the network, the stronger and deeper the community we'll all have. Thanks again, and I appreciate you.